Hey everyone. So I had a question from one of my students. Essentially, what it was that some of this paint detail was showing through onto some of the brass area, and that was kind of an unexpected result for the student. So I just wanted to cover one thing that might not be pointed out as clearly as I'd like in the videos. So this little video should help with that. Um, there are blend modes to each of these layers. Now, normally you would see these are set to normal, so everything should be fine. I think in the videos I mentioned that you want to make sure that the blend mode's set to normal. This is the blend mode for just the color channel, so the base color. The one that you really need to focus on is the height channel. If you click on the height channel, you see how all of your maps go black and white? Well, that's because your height channel is black and white. And the default blend mode for height channel is pass through, which allows bump maps from everything underneath, so red paint is underneath the brass, to show through onto the layers above. So if I were to set this one to pass through, you see that one kind of stops it, but if this one's set to normal, you get all this grungy stuff. Essentially, the only thing that you need to know to fix any of these issues of bump maps showing through from one layer to another layer is just change your blend mode to normal just by clicking here, normal, 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 and for the entire group itself, normal. That should actually take care of it. Essentially let me see if I can give you a quick illustration of what exactly is happening here. So the bottom layer here is set to normal. If I were to create a fill layer over top of it, by default this one is set to linear dodge, right? And if I bring up the properties fill, oh, it's right here, sorry. There we go. So even though this fill layer has its height set to 0, which should basically be covering this entire object with a no effect of a bump map, so if I go to the height channel, this fill layer sits over top of the paint layer. So like if I were to go to the color channel, base color, you can see that the color I have here, so color is active, it's set to white. If I set it to red, you see that it's completely, that's probably a bad color to pick, white. So you can see that this, sitting on top of this one, it's completely overwriting what the color is. So because the color is normal, those are the blend modes. But if I go to height, because this one's set to linear dodge, if I'm going to go in here, the only time it really starts to have an effect is if the color starts to overtake the color of the bumps underneath. So you can see like these little white dots here. The only time that this overtakes it is when it gets a little bit higher. But if I were to set this blend mode here that's set to linear dodge by default to normal, now I have this layer over top controlling the height. Now you don't get any effect because essentially everything is bumped up, everything is bumped down. This layer here is completely overwriting the layer underneath it. If I were to right click on this and say add black mask, and then added a paint layer in there, if I were to go in and start painting, whoops, sorry. So I'm actually painting with gray. Let me see if I can make that a little bit more apparent. So there we go. So because this one is set to a normal blend mode, it's basically just I am drawing over top of the layer below it. If I set this to pass through, and then if I change the blend mode, you can see how you can start to see the bump map underneath this showing through. And that's the effect you get. But that's not really the effect that I would like. What I would like to have happen is this be set to normal. So it's just this one is over top of this one, period. No question about it. And then that allows me to bump it up or bump it down, just like that. And that's the effect that you'd really want to go for. So for example, if I were to use a smart material, sorry, a smart mask shelf, go into smart masks. Sorry, it's taking a little bit. Drag and drop this over here. You can see that I have that curvature. And if I wanted this to be sunk into the object to make it look like there's a lighter version of the paint underneath, I wouldn't want the blend mode to be set to pass through, because it just looks horrible. It just, you don't really have the same level of control. It can only go in one direction. It can only go from no effect to an effect. I can't actually carve into the surface in any way, or in any meaningful way. And then you get that weird pop right there when the two color values meet up. So what you want to do is you want to set that to normal. And now I have the ability to chop into an object or bulge out from an object. And then that masked layer, I can then go in and add any kind of bump map I want, knowing that this one layer itself is just kind of self-contained. Another thing to keep in mind is when I put this into a group, if I hit Control G, you'll notice that the group by default defaults to linear dodge. You'll also need to set that back to normal to get predictable results. So I'll just call that the bump folder. And yeah, so that's that. You want it to be essentially like you're cutting away one material from another material using just these blend modes. So yeah, just keep in mind right here, base color, everything might be set to normal, but you really need to focus on the height channel here, and that'll take care of that. So cool, thank you.